When life throws you a curveball, how are you going to handle adversity? Welcome to the Fearless Mindset Podcast, where you're about to go on a journey as I interview security, business, and entertainment leaders on what it takes to stay fearless. I'm your host, Mark Ledlow, and enjoy today's episode. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Fearless Mindset Podcast. This is Mark Ledlow, bringing to you a new guest. We have not had Mike Sarraille on, and welcome to the show, Mike Sarraille. How you doing?
Thank you for having me.
You got it. Yeah, to the audience that does not know Mike has served. He did an amazing, I think it's pretty hot, pretty profound. Not everybody can do this, but he served in the Special Forces of the Marine Force Recon. And then Scout Sniper, and then all of a sudden he commissioned into the Navy SEAL in the SEAL teams. That is not easy to do. Just the mindset. We'll start the show off with that. And congrats, thanks for your service. And my question being a Marine, how did you get through so much pain and agony and buzz and SEAL training as it is for about a year? That just seems crazy.
Well, I've got to make one correction. So I was at 1st Recon Battalion. I was a Recon Marine. Never got stationed at a Force Recon unit.
Okay.
There's much of a difference. No, hey, the Marine Corps was foundational. The recon training was not easy, nor was the Scout Sniper training or any other school like Combat and Dive. But it was formative in that it changed the constitution of who I was as a young man. Because if you saw Mike pre-military, there was not much discipline. There was not much commitment other than to having a good time and wherever the party was taking place. So the Marine Corps laid the foundation for me to be successful, and that's why I'm a former Marine, never an ex-Marine. Absolutely love it and what it does. But to set my sights on the SEALs, that was a decision that was made because the global war on terror had kicked off. I joined the Marine Corps in '98. A lot of my recon buddies that I was communicating with at the time in the early days of Afghanistan didn't feel like they were getting the missions. They were not part of SOCOM. So it was a very deliberate decision, intentional, designed with intentionality to make sure that if I was going to go back and serve, which at the time I was at Texas A&M on something called the MESEP program, the Marine Enlisted Commissioning Education Program, to switch or transition from enlisted Marine to an officer in the Marines. So I did go to Marine OCS, but moving to the SEALs was the smart call. And then shortly after I got to the SEALs, they commissioned MARSOC Det 1, which proved successful as the Marine Corps was going to make it successful no matter what. Put their best guys in testing a test unit in order to prove that they were capable of joining SOCOM, and they smashed it. And MARSOC was created. But the SEALs served me well. Love that community as well. Just like I love the Marine Corps. Surrounded by good men and women in both communities. And don't regret my path. It's not the traditional path. And then eventually made it to JSOC, which is just a completely different world than all the rest. And very, very thankful for my time and the level of leadership that I received or was a recipient of during my time in JSOC, which again was formative on me, and just had a really good time. 20 years, it seemed like it flew by, and I can say that at the very end of it, looking back. Wish I had more deployments, but you don't necessarily get to choose when you deploy. I stayed in a deployable billet my entire career, almost in the SEAL teams. To the point where I was pretty wore out towards the end, but that was, I think, more of a byproduct of just the policy moving forward and how the military was being used. It just started to take a wane on a lot of the guys. We felt like lions led by sheep, or lions led by dogs, and it was just my time when I said, "Hey, I think I'm good."
Here's something that kind of went through my mind serving also in the Marine Corps. At your level of service, was it almost by being like a professional athlete and you had professional coaches just training you guys day in, day out, just be professional war fighters? And would it be like being almost a Tom Brady mindset or a Michael Jordan mindset, but you're training for war. You're training for war. So almost like athletic mindset. Would you say that's pretty comparable? at
Yeah,
that level?
that's a great analogy. I often heard the term warrior athletes used quite a bit. I will say, in the Marine Corps and even in the recon community, you ran a lot of your own training, and that was just due to budgetary constraints. When I got
Hmm.
to SOCOM and got to the SEALs, we brought a lot of civilian experts in to assist, whether it was human performance. Even a
Hmm.
lot of the schools, shooting schools we went to were by, three gun champions, civilians, people that really got to focus on one thing and be best in the world at it. And of course, we went to study underneath them. So if we were rock climbing, we'd go find the best mountaineers in the world. If we were shooting, we'd go find the three gun competition champions, and found that very, very interesting that we were always seeking out the very best and then trying to learn from them. And then at JSOC, it's a whole different level with the amount of money that you have, and rightfully so. They try to retain their corporate knowledge, and those guys are the best in the world, and that's not up for debate. And just the whole view on how JSOC was run, and
Hmm.
the mission set for which they had, it made sense. And I think that's really where watching the movies as a young kid finally
Hmm.
met reality when I got to that level. But each was a building block throughout my career to getting there. But talking about the warrior and the warrior ethos and
Hmm.
lethality, but the human performance aspect of the athletics world actually go hand in hand. Maintaining, yeah, I think the difference between athletes and warriors is athletes try to peak on a particular day, and
Hmm.
they
Yeah.
train to peak at that day, and then they'll do it again for the next game or match or whatever sport they're in. With warriors, that doesn't necessarily work because you don't get to choose the time and place at which you're
Hmm.
called. So it's less about peak performance and optimal performance over extended periods of time.
So the endurance part is maxed out. That's probably why you have the issue with PTSD. Athletes don't. Athletes probably get like football player, enough concussions and all that from your helmet and all that. But battle itself, you just the PTSD that comes from that and the high suicide rate from many warriors coming home. It's just a lot to deal with.
Yeah, we have those discussions amongst veterans,
Hmm.
in the suicide rate. I think there's so many variables that
Hmm.
it's going to take a long time before we figure out this one. And we're not even talking about the psychological and
Hmm.
physiological impacts that come with service, but then there's cultural,
Yeah.
there's society. And I think you look at Israel, where everyone serves, and they
Hmm.
have extremely low PTSD rates because they're returning to a society that understands, and proximity
Mm.
to the fight. Even as young civilians, they're exposed to that extremist environment. Whereas the United States, less than 1% serve. And so when you step out of a very unique culture known as the military and
Hmm.
step back into the civilian populace, it's a culture shock from which some never recover. And that's even trying to codify the problem into that one
Hmm.
variable. But there's so many variables. The bottom line is whether it's 22 or 17 a day is totally unacceptable for us as a nation. And good people are out there trying to find pathways to help vets recover that need it. Not all vets need it, and God bless them that they're dedicating 100% of their time and almost making this a profession to assisting us coming out.
Amen to that. Yeah, I know when I came out, I got out a week after 9/11, got the lucky envelope in the mailbox, opened it up, and the week right after we got hit. I'm like, you got to be kidding me. I can't believe this just happened. I'm like, well, under the Clinton era, nothing really happened, and here we go.
Yeah.
And I remember transitioning myself. I'm like, man, these guys in corporate America are just lazy. I just, you know, 8 years in the Corps, I'm like, oh my God, I just losing my mind just working around lazy corporate people and their culture. I'm like, how do you get anything done over here? And I noticed that's what you do, leadership in corporate America.
Yeah, we've got to be careful there,
Hmm.
because I could, if you line me up 100 Marines, I can point out 30 that are lazy compared to the other
Absolutely.
Marines.
Right.
I've actually been blown away by some of the corporate leadership that I've gotten to meet or touch
Hmm.
or work with. They move at a different speed. Even if they didn't serve, they would have made great SEALs, Marines, soldiers, airmen. Um, it really comes down to those attributes, those characteristics that individuals have. And so you've got to evaluate by the individual. It's like saying that every
Hmm.
Marine that gets out of the Marine Corps would be a great hire, where you and I know that not to be true. Uh,
True. Good point.
performance follows a bell curve regardless of
Mm-hmm.
your profession. You've got your top 10%, you've
Mm-hmm.
got that middle percentage, and then you got the bottom feeders. Um, that's no different, cut and paste, whether it's the military or investment banking. That performance bell curve, it overlays on top of every industry.
You got a good point there because most executives in tech, they have KPIs they got to hit. They have to hit matrices each month. They have monthly quotas they got to hit. I don't know if I'd survive in that environment. It's just,
Yeah.
dog eat dog world. They got to produce.
Well, here's a good way to look at it. When I say the term warrior, that is not, I'm not referring to the profession of guns or arms. Um, there's a mindset, whether you want to call it the growth mindset, I call it a warrior mindset,
Mm-hmm.
that has nothing to do with the profession and absolutely everything to do with a mindset. So I often, when I'll meet a business leader who never served in the military that just he has that, he has it, or she has it. They're a great leader, high in character, high in drive. People gravitate towards them. They'll hold people accountable in a respectful and kind way. They'll drive outcomes for their organization. They're very much warriors within their respective professions. And so yeah, I'm very careful to paint with, or be very selective of what brushes I paint with. Um,
Mm-hmm.
just because somebody served in the military does not make them uh, great in the civilian world. It does not make them a great hire. They've been exposed to a world-class education now, whether they chose to
Mm-hmm.
implement that education during their time in service and then apply that when they get out. That comes down to the individual, and so you've got to size people up, even veterans, individually, assess them as to whether they'll be a good culture fit if they have those attributes that define success rather than the technical aspect of it, because anything tactics or technically can be taught, but a mindset that's hard to instill in a 30-year-old, a 40-year-old who's ingrained in their ways.
Great point. I'm reading off the resume here I got for you. You're also the CEO of Talent War Group, an executive search firm. How's that going? That's kind of what we're leading up to, I guess, is helping people find jobs. Is that kind of what that is?
Yeah, and that was I sold that company in 2024 to a veteran-owned, veteran-led company in the data center space. Talent War Group was predominantly an executive search firm. We placed
Okay.
veterans into lower to middle market companies, small to medium-sized businesses that were privately owned, because we found that was our sweet
Okay.
spot. Versus trying to place them in enterprises or Fortune 500, where a lot of the feedback we
Hmm.
got was they felt like another number. So we focused really on privately owned smaller companies that could be 50 employees, that could be 100, 200, 500, where they felt that they could assimilate and drive results for that mission in that company. But no, it was, building a business and even doing it now as a chief talent officer of a data center company is one of the toughest things I've ever done. Uh, as I
Mm.
say, I'd rather go back to war 10 times than start
Wow.
another business. And that's because I'm only 8 years retired. I did go get my MBA. That
Oh,
made
did
me
you?
dangerous enough to think I could run a business. And really the true MBA, I'm getting it right now as we're scaling a company at a just accelerated rate, learning every day. But running a business, founding a business, starting a business, that is one of the toughest things I've ever done.
I would agree with you there. 5 years in with Mind Ledlow Security Group, I had no idea what I was getting into. I thought it was executive protection company, have a few people working on a residential security team on a high net worth, high profile figure or family. I'm like, whoa, it's an MBA crash course, basically,
Yeah.
surrounding myself with
Yeah.
some people with CFOs and, accounting. I'm like, there's so much stuff had no idea what I was getting into. But I'm like, well,
Yeah. Everyone loves the idea of starting a business. There's a lot of
mm-hmm,
risk.
mm-hmm,
Even the first 2 years of starting Talent War Group, I had my military retirement. I was speaking on the side, but didn't take a paycheck for the first 2 years of that company just to make sure that we had payroll met, we were taking care of our employees, and that we had a buffer for any contingency or emergency that would happen. And it worked, but that was a rough 2 years, basically working for yourself for
Hmm.
free.
It's rough. It is brutal. I'm like, well, can't be any worse than being in a Marine Corps boot camp. That's what I tell myself anyway. But I got to give you props. I watched you and Andy Stump on Joe Rogan, and just loved the banter you guys had on the show, and kind of talking about chew and cut, long, short, and how you stay alive when you're on patrol and keep the caffeine and the water going in. I was just laughing. That's just being human. Warriors on the field, doing what you got to do to get through patrol, that shift, doing that, executing that mission in the field, and that was pretty phenomenal.
Yeah, Andy is a good dude. He's I call him a rhetorical artist. Um, Bright. He's done very well for himself, but yeah, we did have a banter, and we ended up doing the 777 expedition where we set 4 world records together, and that was just nothing but constant constant laughs, especially with the 7 other guys we had that came from Special Operations Marine Corps. Um,
Mhm.
it was like a boys' trip again.
Yeah, he just walked in and everybody knew who he was just by all his credibility in the field. Let it uh, put it all on the battlefield. And he had that reputation walking in that room the right way. Just like whoa, the real deal. Yeah, I want to dive into what's your opinion on the whole Middle East situation we got ourselves in with the current administration? It's being in the business world, people are wondering what they should do and what it looks like. I hear a lot of talk from my friends in the intel world, what they think is happening, and what what's your opinion on the whole thing out there?
So that is a very, very broad question, but I'll try to give you sort of an executive summary of my thoughts. So one, what President Trump has done in terms of global politics and national security, he's accomplished more in these few years than most presidents have, or the last few presidents combined. Trump naturally is going to have his share of haters.
Mm.
Anything that he does well, they'll find a way to pick away at it. But if you look at the subsequent nature of what he's done with Israel and Hamas, Hamas is severely degraded. They're a shadow of their former selves. It's going to be very hard for them to reconstitute. Then you add in Venezuela, and the significance of that is basically, call it, what do they refer to it as? Trump Western doctrine. He's removed the doorstep to our adversaries, namely Russia, China, into the Western Hemisphere. But additionally, also removed the black oil, black market oil that was benefiting China and Russia as well as some others. He removed that and put that on the open market. So I think we've ignored the Western Hemisphere while our eyes have been
Mm.
fixated on the global war on terrorism. And Trump has essentially set the conditions for our sovereignty, for our citizens to be safer. He's taken on the illegal immigration and put a severe hamper or dent in that problem. So I applaud him for what's going on there. Same thing with Iran. Iran also is part of the black market, putting their oil at very discounted prices, with mainly benefiting China. So with those two subsequent moves, he has isolated China and Russia to a great degree. With Iran, is he being led by Netanyahu? No, I don't think so. Is the timing to strike Iran odd? No, not necessarily, especially with intel showing that they were seeking a nuclear weapon. They were only weeks away from enriching from 60% to 90%, which makes the uranium weapons grade uranium. Did they have a long range missile capability? We saw that with the two missiles they launched at Diego Garcia, even though they were both intercepted or one malfunctioned. So they were getting to that point. For 47 years, we've allowed the status quo to go on. And I don't agree with that. We all know the John Stuart Mills quote: "The only thing necessary for the triumph of evil is for good men to stand by and do nothing. He never intended to put ground troops into Iran. This wasn't an Iraq 2.0. Can you win a war without putting ground troops? No. But what he's done is severely degraded the IRGC, the Iranian regime, their Navy, their Air Force, their drone capacity, their missile capacity. So he's degraded their ability for regional disruption. While doing that, in an unintended consequence, I may argue, we've seen an alignment now with Gulf partners that we've not seen in our lifetimes. And so that's the momentum he has to focus on in Abraham's Accord 2.0 or an Abraham's Accord expansion, where you've got the Gulf partners who each of them have 2030 economic development plans. They want to increase their tourism. They want to become tech hubs because they know the price of oil and the use of oil will wane as technology comes to the forefront, especially small SMRs, small modular reactors. As that technology comes to the forefront, we'll be less reliant on oil from a major energy perspective. So, I think you'll see a increased cooperation between Israel and the Gulf partner states, which further isolates the IRGC and the Iranian regime. So they are diminished. And I think he set the conditions for the eventual fall of the IRGC. That may be next year. That could be 10 years from now. But at least he had the courage to do what, in my eyes, is right. And why do I say right? Because I have experience, as do a lot of vets, where we were fighting Iranian special forces or Iranian special groups, Quds forces, in Sadr City in Iraq. Iran was a supplier to the fight in Iraq, the EFPs, explosive forming penetrators. Killed, dozens and dozens of soldiers. So Iran has the blood of well over 1,000 Americans on their hands, from Khobar to the Beirut bombing, to what happened in Iraq, to the Americans killed in the October 7 incident. And so, I've got nothing but rancor and total disgust and hatred for Iran. So I may be biased in my view on what's going on over there. Is the deal perfect? No. It's not. And, I think another benefit is Iran will always try to use the Strait of Hormuz as a leverage point. And you already have the Gulf partners talking about building pipelines to reroute oil to the Red Sea, the Med, or elsewhere, just to remove that lever altogether. So I think there's going to be some great outcomes here. I'm not happy it took the lives of 13 service members and a lot of our arsenal, which we will rebuild. But then again, look how much he's further constrained or confined China and Russia. The next hurdle for him, and Ukraine is Ukraine is a David versus Goliath story. What they're doing in Crimea, they push the Russian Black Sea fleet out of the ports in Crimea. They're hammering Crimea. They're hammering Russian logistics on top of eliminating soldiers on the daily. And now you've got fights in Russia as they've called for a reduction in oil or gas that's for their civilian populace. So Putin is in a very bad way. And I think Trump will seize that momentum to come in before the end of his term and find some resolution to that conflict as well. So I think he's done a great job, and we will see where the midterms fall out. And ultimately, you got to hand it to him. The courage, knowing that midterm elections were around the corner, for him to engage or go after this proposition of removing Iran, that takes moral courage.
Absolutely.
Iran, I'll finish with this. Iran thinks that our American election cycle is stronger than our American resolve. And what's been upsetting is we all know this is the right thing to do. The Democratic Party knows this is the right thing to do.
Sure. They're
going to use this as political ammunition to armchair quarterback and try to win in the midterm elections. And I guess the old adage of politics stops at the water's edge holds true no more. And that's what's sad, because the Democratic Party and all the criticism of this war has essentially handed ammunition to the Iranian regime. And that is disgusting, especially as we have troops forward fighting against them.
How many tours did you do in Iraq? Quite a few from what I saw there.
4.
That's a lot. You saw a lot of stuff.
Yeah. Well, the last deployment to Iraq was my last deployment. It was when the whole ISIS thing kicked off. So it was
Mm.
mainly the Iraqi war, and then one tour for ISIS. We were the first ones on the ground. We didn't have many authorities to do anything because Obama had basically threatened anyone's careers if shots
Mm.
were fired. But we
Wow.
were setting the stage for the guys coming behind us to do great work. And sometimes that's your job, is to set up the guys coming behind you
Right.
to do the real work and make sure that they're successful. And that's what we did.
So most of the equipment you saw, military equipment you saw on the ground in Iraq, was it made in Iran, from what I've heard?
I couldn't put a percentage on it. I know the EFPs that were flooding in 2007 to about 2009 were manufactured in Iran, but a lot probably came from many places in Asia.
Yeah, hard to believe. How many years ago was that? That's like crazy.
Yeah, too long.
Feeling old. Yeah, I mean, congratulations on all your seeing you on news contributor on many network podcasts and TV shows and all that. Seen you a few times on a couple media networks out there, and I'm like, wow, you're making the rounds. You're just going after it.
Yeah, well, trying to run a company, it takes a toll. I can't say that I'm not feeling it. I very
Yeah,
much.
I can imagine. Any advice for the military veterans trying to go in the corporate world? What is your advice to them as far as getting placed, leaving, transitioning from military into the private sector?
Yeah, give it time. Uh, I would say the transition from the military to the civilian world is it's not like being a sniper, one shot, one kill.
Right.
It's more of a process of elimination. You think you may know what you want to do, and will come to a very quick realization that you were misguided based off of whatever preconceived notions about that industry. So it's not only finding the industry or the profession where you find passion again, but it's also finding the right culture, the right company within that profession or industry that matches with what you're looking for. So I think on average, a vet getting out within the first 5 years, I believe it's will hold anywhere from 3 to 5 jobs. Like, that's not a sign of failure.
Hmm.
That's a sign that you're testing a little, you're learning a lot until you find too hot, too cold, just right.
Right.
Um,
Hmm.
and you've got to be geographically mobile this day and age. If you're from Iowa and you want to move back to Des Moines, just know that you're limited in both industry and companies within that area. But I get it. If they want to move back to where their family is, you're just a little more constrained in terms of options and choices. But talk to as many people, usually not veterans. I will recommend that. Talk to somebody who's never served about what they do. Um, Ask a lot of questions, gauge it or reflect if that is a good reflection or indication of your strengths and whether you give value to your team and your company, but also sometimes you got to fake it to make it. You're not going to be surrounded by like-minded people all the time. Your sense of humor may not land the way it landed in the military.
Sure.
But sometimes you just got to fake it and become really good at whatever you choose to do. And
Mm.
sometimes if you become a subject matter expert at your trade,
Mm.
then you will find that passion because people come to you to help them solve problems. And that means you're needed. That means you have a value. So ultimately, with what I started, give yourself time, give yourself some grace, and fake it until you make it.
I think that's a problem a lot of veterans have, is being allowing themselves, having grace for themselves in their journey in life and making those transitions. I think a lot of veterans are just brutally more harder than they need to be on themselves in that progression.
And that's a culture thing.
Hmm.
The military, we don't train accountability and discipline. We train self accountability and we train self discipline. We know
Right.
you'll hold yourself accountable most well. And that's a point before anyone else has to. You'll point out things that you got wrong, even though others didn't see it. Um, and that can still be a superpower. Show me a boss in any company that wouldn't like to see somebody who holds themselves accountable or calls themselves out for making a mistake that nobody else saw, and then
100%.
shares that with their teammates in case they run into that same scenario. They don't make the same mistake. Any
Right.
boss would love to have uh, people like that, whether they're military background or not, um, because they know they can trust you and you're going to get it right.
Hmm.
Even if you get it wrong at first, you get it wrong the second time, you're eventually going to get it right.
One thing if I am owner of my own company is loyalty. It's hard to find that. Is that a culture thing with the younger generation, or is that their wants and needs totally different nowadays in the workforce?
Yeah, it's not a generational thing in my opinion.
Okay.
I'm trying to think of the former chairman of the Joint Chiefs. It'll come to me. Marine pilot.
Okay.
Basically wrote an article, and it was a beautifully written article about the culture in the military and the culture in the private sector and how they have to be different. How the culture of the military requires
Mm,
conformity and alignment. It requires loyalty, purpose beyond oneself, and how the military and the private sector just don't work that way, and for a
mm,
good reason. That capitalism and free enterprise require more of a self-driven nature, a selfish nature. We talked earlier about the transition and why some suffer is because that is such a shock to their system and what they've known for 4 years, 10 years, 20 years.
hmm.
And for some people, they just can't get over that. And arguably, it took me a little while too. Um, but the sooner you can say, hey, sort of recognize the environment for what it is, and then work within the confines of that culture, you'll be in a much better position to succeed. Um, and we're even doing it within our company here. Hell, when I came on board this data center company, we had an Indeed and Glassdoor rating of like a little above 3.0. And we've
That
brought
good?
a lot of what we learned in the
Mm,
military, culturally from a leadership and culture perspective, and we're now 4.8 on both
wow.
Glassdoor and Indeed, and we have 500 employees. So
500.
when I started, it was 50. We're now at 500, uh,
Oof.
and we've been able to put the culture in the company in a
Hmm.
different direction, even with our growth. Um,
That's
and
phenomenal.
yeah, that would not have happened if we did not have that military background. Each of
Hmm.
the C-suite, except for the CFO, came from a military background. The two founders, alongside the CEO, came from a military background, and we really just took a page out of the military playbook on how to build high-performing teams, and that's what we've done with our culture, and it's worked thus far. Talk to me when we're 1,000 people, and I'm sure I'm going to
Right.
recognize or encounter some different obstacles and problems, but right now it's working for us. And we have a last line with our tenets. We created these tenets called the Mission Critical, the Overwatch Way. There's
Mm,
9 of them, but
okay.
the last is protect the culture. And you've got to be a standard bearer for your culture. You've got to protect it. And the second you see a cancer metastasizing, you exercise it as quickly as possible and get it out.
Mm,
So
get it out of the system.
yeah, we've been pretty good about that.
Now, Overwatch is, I want to make sure I understand it. It's a data center company.
Overwatch Mission Critical. The
Okay.
logo you see behind me.
Let's see that.
That's Oscar.
That's Oscar.
Our
Okay.
CEO is a submariner. So
Okay.
if you didn't know, the octopus is the smartest animal in the sea. Yeah, and we are the largest labor provider of trades and skilled workers to either the building and delivery of data centers, and now the operations, the running of data
Ah,
centers. And so
wow.
we're predominantly out of the United States, but we also have a office in EMEA, based out of London, to serve that market as well.
Dang. And the data center market, that's going to be exploding with AI and all that, right? That's supporting all AI and computing, and
Yeah,
that's going
cloud
to be insane.
cloud computing, and then most of the projects that we are on are AI factories, as we call them in the industry. Um, yeah, the industry is coming to the forefront because it is the fifth industrial revolution.
Mm,
Start viewing AI and cloud as like the fifth utility. It's accelerated faster than any other previous industrial revolution in the amount of capital being poured in, because the data center industry is a national security asset, as we're in a race for AI dominance against China. And they
whoa.
are trying to accelerate, but we've got a leg up on them, not only from chips, but to actual data center builds. It's
Whoa.
an interesting space, and quite frankly, Mark, I knew data centers existed about 2 years ago. I couldn't tell you what a data center did. And that's a perfect example of what we were talking about before.
Right.
Data centers, that wasn't even on my radar,
Sure.
getting out of the military. It wasn't on my radar 3 years ago. And all of a sudden, I'm in a industry that I absolutely love, that I find fascinating, that it's like drinking through a fire hose every day. But the reason I love this industry is because of the culture we've built, the teammates I have
Mm,
around me.
right.
And this industry changes so rapidly
Hmm.
that even people that have been in the space for 20 years have to learn new things. So if you have drive, if you can constantly adapt, if you're agile, this space is awesome for veterans. And I could not, I can honestly say this, I could not be happier right now.
That's all. I can see you're passionate about what you believe it. You live and breathe it, and that's awesome. Just the passion. That's one of the reasons why we got licensed in Texas 2 years ago. I'm like, I see the migration, I see the potential. When I'm out there in Frisco Plain, I'm like, this is insane. This whole state's
Yeah.
gone bonkers. But it's the energy in Texas is like nothing I've ever seen before in the U.S. of A. As long as I lived, I'm like, there's so much energy.
I am a born again Texan. I got here as quickly as I could. In full fairness, the Marine Corps sent me to finish my degree at Texas A&M, and then I finished up my MBA at the University of Texas. So, um, I'm in Austin right now, which is like a blueberry and tomato soup. But I love Texas, and it has been good to me. And come on, who doesn't want to pay 0% state income tax? Um,
I moved my
just
company out there 2 years
yeah,
ago.
yep,
Like I'm out of the West Coast in Fresco, S Corp. Here we go. I'm like, yeah, it's just the energy out there when I'm out there running around. I mean, people are happy and making money, and just the excitement. It just brings you in. And Austin's off the charts. Nobody wants to be
yeah,
in Austin.
yeah. I got here early enough.
There you go.
Yes, I was not one of the Californians that moved in post COVID, so it's been good to me and my family, and yeah, no complaints. Texas is growing rapidly, and actually, Texas is the home of AI, just given the amount of data center builds going on right now.
And there's a lot of foreign investment in those AI data centers too, from what I saw on the TV. Is that
Yeah, there is from SoftBank to other major enterprises, foreign enterprises that have invested because they've got interest in our capacity, both cloud and AI. So it's a smart investment on their behalf. And
hmm
I think the United States has over 60% of the world's data centers, and
Whoa,
more
that's
data center
crazy.
builds are going on in the state of Texas than any other uh, location across the world. But that was also Texas policy. They made it very attractive
Sure.
for companies, for hyperscalers and owner operators to come to Texas. Abundance of energy, of manpower, and so it was a smart play on Texas. However, we're running into some resistance right now with the anti data center movement, and this is just
Mm,
a conversation that needs to take place between
sure.
government, the hyperscalers and owner operators, and residents of whatever town has a data center planned to be built in their general vicinity.
Would you say most of the data centers are going to be like probably west of Dallas, that pushing that way where there's more land available?
It is. They're usually, I mean, so you do have data centers within urban areas, but
Hmm.
they prefer, a lot of land. You've got to have access to water. You've got to have access to via the grid to power, even
Hmm.
though they are building, self generation, which further stabilizes the grid for the residents of whatever
Hmm.
town it's being built in. Um, so you've got a lot of builds in like Abilene is the Stargate project. That's one of the biggest data center builds going on right now in the world. Um,
That's the Oracle one, I think.
it is, and there's others throughout West Texas and
Yeesh.
North Texas.
Oil, gas, data centers. Oh my gosh. Give me a crazy town out there. I guess Landman, I think Taylor Sheridan
Yeah,
had an idea. Just
yeah.
blowing up. So what do you do when you're not working so hard? Do you relax?
No.
No.
Um, I'd love to say I have a hobby, and it used to be skydiving, but I haven't
Uh,
skydived in probably about, I'd say, 8 months. So one, a
Hmm.
chief talent officer, and that's pretty much 24/7. I've got all the TV's news hits, acting as a national security correspondent. I've got my third nonfiction book coming out in January, February, March, April timeframe. And then I've got a 21-month-old at home. So whatever spare
Wow.
time, and then constantly on the road, speaking to companies, a keynote speaker for a sales kickoff or a major conference.
Mhm.
So I don't have much time for myself, still maintain my health, but that's because I'm up at 4:20 in the morning, getting it
420.
in first
You and
thing in the
Jocko have
morning.
something in common there.
You know what? I would say BS to that. There's a lot of
Yeah,
people in the military that get up around that time.
that's true.
Just because somebody commercialized it doesn't mean they have the monopoly on it.
Got it.
Nor do I. It just works for me.
Right.
So there isn't much spare time to do anything. So I focus on the three things. The company, my family, my health, and that's all I have time for right now. And now that will change in the coming years. But I'm a big fan of Fox News. I'm a big fan of the company as a whole. I love that they've been good to me. I've got a few TV shows on Fox Nation that are focused on veterans. We've got a few
I
more
saw
coming
that.
this summer that I host or was a part of. And the fact that they are so dedicated to our military and veterans, I just
Says a
love the
lot.
company. So I could see a future going that way if they'll have me. I still have time to put in with them and develop on that side. Again, there's another example. I never thought I would be in media. I didn't go get an MBA to be a national security correspondent, but that's just how life works.
It
Sometimes
is.
life is more of a puzzle to be solved
Hmm.
than a mystery. I'm sorry, more of a mystery to be lived than a puzzle to be solved.
Wow. Yeah, I never thought I'd be a podcaster 6 years later
Yeah,
during COVID.
yeah,
No journalism background. I was just like, okay, let's give this a shot. Here we are, 6 years later. I got Mike Sarraille on here, and who would have guessed? It's all part of faith, whatever you call it. But any parting? I know you got to run here soon. Any advice to the listeners out there, and just life and journey, and just make it all count, type of thing.
Whew. Ah, best advice. Yeah. Um, we just had we do a monthly thing every night
Hmm.
where we invite not only the employees but their families and friends. And I spoke on one of my books called The Everyday Warrior. I think the biggest thing we had kids as young as 9 on there is you know own your journey. That
Mm,
comparison is the thief of joy. We live in a era where everyone is posting on social media. People look and compare their lives to what's being posted. You you have total control of agency in your life. You determine what your goals are. You determine what your journey is, and don't let others determine what success is for you. And I even struggled with that for the longest time. It's like, hey, what is my dad's definition
right.
of success? And that's what
Yeah.
my definition has to be. And my dad's a good man, always my foremost friend and mentor. But I've had to even at the age of 40 is redetermine what success looks like for me post retirement. That couldn't be what my dad had defined for me as a young man, and that's important for kids. And once you define what success looks like for you, no holds barred. Just go after it. Pour into it, and life will throw curves in the road at you. But if you're that committed to achieving it, the people that really want it that much will put in the work. And the journey is a lot more rewarding than the end destination. I've
Mm,
always gotten to any goal that we've set that we arrive at. I always found that it's never as fulfilling as I would think it was. Even
right.
becoming a SEAL, it didn't always measure up to what I had envisioned it to be. But everything I learned during my time in the SEAL teams was absolutely the reward, not the end
Mm,
destination. And so enjoy the journey. That's where the best lessons happen in life.
I would agree with that. Well, and to the audience, hope you enjoyed this podcast with Mike Sarraille. He is a news contributor with Fox News Contributor. He's got his own show on Fox Nation about Arlington and the cemetery. And he's been giving a lot back to our veteran community. And we're honored to have him on the show and grateful for his time. As you can hear on the show, he's very busy. And so
Yeah.
this is a multi-million dollar nuggets on transitioning from the veteran life to the private sector life. And please take notes. And you can find us on all the podcast platforms under the Fearless Mindset Podcast, and YouTube, Mark Ledlow, and Apple and Spotify as well. Thanks for tuning in, everybody. And Mike, thanks for coming on the show. We appreciate your time.
Thank you for having me, Mark. Appreciate it.
You're welcome, brother. Semper Fi.
Semper Fi.